These webinars are our platforms to share expertise and experiences of our graduates in the medical field and even beyond it. So tonight, we'll be having class 1996, who were our interns when we were in med school by that time. We were junior interns and they were our senior interns. No? Clerks na pala tawag na yun, no? So it's quite special for me to open this program tonight, as my bosses are the ones presenting tonight. Okay, they will be the main celebrants for the homecoming in 2021, as they will be celebrating their silver anniversary since their graduation. So now they will be presenting their expertise, sharing their experiences for everyone, for us to learn from and probably follow. Now, this webinar will serve as a prelude to the 2021 homecoming celebration, wherein we will most likely have a hybrid homecoming celebration, with most of the activities being on a virtual platform and having some physical activities if and when the pandemic condition would permit. And let me also take this opportunity to congratulate our new doctors from class 2019, who just recently took their physician licensure examination and passed the board. So we have new doctors from UERM. Congratulations and welcome to the Alumni Association. So without much further ado, I bring back the floor to our class 96 with their webinar. Ngayong gabi.
Thank you again, Sam, at maraming salamat sa UERMMC Alumni Association for allowing us this opportunity. As Sam has said, 25 years na po namin next year. And because of the ongoing pandemic, we are not sure if we're going to have a celebration. So we decided to have this webinar series. So this is not the only webinar we're going to have. This is going to be the first of many. And also, I would like to congratulate two of our classmates, Nelson Tan and Christine Abrazado Parde, whose children have just recently passed the physician licensure examinations, and both are also graduates of UERM. So congratulations to your children, Nelson and Christine, and congratulations to both of you as well. So, pinag-usapan lang din naman yung mga batches, no? Si Sam ay one batch younger sa atin. But yung guest natin for tonight is actually celebrating their Pearl anniversary. So he graduated 10 years ahead of us, and he's not unknown to everyone because he was our professor in psychiatry. So I'd just like to give a brief introduction about our speaker. He graduated magna cum laude with a degree of Bachelor of Science major in clinical psychology. Of course, he graduated at UERM, where he also spent his residency training in general psychiatry. And then after which, he went on postgraduate training in psychiatry of old age in Australia. And then he's a diplomate of the Philippine Board of Psychiatry, Life Fellow of the Philippine Psychiatric Association. So currently, he is the treasurer of the Board of Directors of the Philippine Psychiatric Association. And he is also an associate professor at the Department of Psychiatry at our home institution, UERM. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Bong Buenaventura.
Thank you very Thank you very much, Ding Dong, for the introduction. By the way, we're Coral. Our class 1986 is celebrating our 35th year. So Coral kami. So special shout out lang to the UER and Department of Psychiatry, especially my colleague, Dr. Joy Malinit, who's a member of the class of 1996. So mabuhay at magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat. Thank you very much to the UERM Class 1996, our Silver Jubilarians, for the honor to participate in tonight's webinar. So allow me to give some situational introduction in terms of framing the discussion for tonight. Okay. So fear, worry, and anxiety are common, typical, or even normal responses to a major health crisis, including the COVID-19 pandemic, together with known psychological reactions of stress, loneliness, and agitation. A study in China during the COVID-19 pandemic found that the overall prevalence of anxiety, depression, and insomnia had remarkably increased. Particularly for anxiety and depression, the increase had been up to 5 to 10 times. In the United States, we see a similar picture, particularly in terms of the symptoms of anxiety and depression. From a year ago to the present, the increase has been about 3 to 5 times. So therefore, even in a major country like the United States, the increase in anxiety and depression has been remarkable. So what do we have in the Philippines? Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of specific data as far as anxiety and depression is concerned. But looking at the reports from the crisis hotline of the National Center for Mental Health, we saw that from a year ago, there has been a remarkable increase as well in terms of the average daily and monthly calls, often more than double from about a year ago. And about 30% of the recent calls are anxiety related. And according to top officials of the National Center for Mental Health, about 60% of those calls are directly related to COVID. One of the remarkable pieces of information from the data that the National Center for Mental Health has shared is that the number of suicide-related calls have also increased. For example, from about 33 calls last March, it rose up to 115 calls in July. Okay. Now, looking in terms of more specific data as far as anxiety and depression in the Philippines is concerned, a recent paper published in the Journal of Affective Disorder last August, looking at the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines, written by authors from the UPPGH, doing online surveys in which they assess depression, anxiety, and stress levels and the impact of the current event on the individuals. They found that more than 16% had moderate to severe psychological impact, about 17% had severe depressive symptoms, almost 30% had moderate to severe anxiety levels, and 13% had moderate to severe stress levels. In a current study that I'm doing at UERM with Dr. Liz Mariano, looking at the psychosocial impact of the pandemic on the elderly, our preliminary results show that about 8 to 9% of our respondents have moderate to severe anxiety and depression, much higher than the national average of just 3%. Unfortunately, these psychosocial responses can lead to adverse long-term consequences and even late sequelae for up to a year or more for vulnerable individuals. And talking about vulnerable individuals, we know that these are the people who will respond more strongly to the stress of a crisis, and unfortunately, they include doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers. This evening's discussion will hopefully provide us with illustrative first-person accounts of the psychosocial impact of the pandemic on doctors. Therefore, I would like to thank in advance our sharers for this remarkable undertaking. Maraming salamat sa inyo. So with that, I turn it over back to Dr. Dingdong Biruar.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Bong, no? So for giving that brief backgrounder regarding the issue that is affecting all of the health workers currently because of the pandemic. So we have actually 4 guests with us, no? Nakita niyo naman sa teaser. And these are all my classmates from batch 96. And I will call each of them one by one I will ask them to introduce themselves and then to tell us briefly their role during the pandemic and what were their initial emotional reaction, no, to the pandemic. Kasi kahit naman pare-pareho tayong doktor, iba-iba yung roles that we play in the society. Some of us do not have a lot of patients, so we are not frontliners. Some of us are educators, some of us are administrators, while some of us were really affected severely by the pandemic um, uh, because of our practice, no, being affected by it. And then some of us naman also had issues at home with our family. So people might think na, naku, baka walang problema yan si doktor kasi busy-busy sa pandemic, no, sa kakatingin lang ng pasyente. Pero, it's like the actors or actresses, they say na kapag nasa movie ka, you're showing something different outside, but deep inside, meron ka ring dinadamdam. So I'm not sure if this is the first webinar that has really talked about, no, the problems of the healthcare workers during the pandemic. Kaya nga yung title natin ngayon kung okay ka ba, Doc? So to start, I'd like to call Dr. Rodney Jimenez. So Rodney, please briefly introduce yourself. Ano ba yung naging role mo during the pandemic and what were the initial reactions that you had during this season?
Thank you very much, Ding Dong, my classmate. First of all, shout out sa batch 96 ng UERM College of Medicine. Ganun na tayo ka bata. 25 years na tayo graduate na from UERM. So ano ba yung naging role ko during the first pandemic? Well, medyo nagkaroon na ng lockdown, no? Yung Metro Manila because of the increasing surge in COVID-19 cases, no? We were called by our hospitals because I am also an internal medicine and interventional cardiologist na practice, no? So isa kami doon sa mga tinawag, no, kung pwede mag-volunteer to see patients doon sa na COVID, especially yung mga critically ill COVID patients, no? So dahil ano ko na excited, volunteer, sige, go ahead, because I don't want to be in the sideline, I want to be the front line. So punta kagad ako, volunteer din ako na tumingin ng patient. Wala naman akong parang nakakatakot siya, pero gusto ko gawin siya because it's our job. Wala naman tayong parang hindi pwedeng ibaliwala na lang yung mga pasyente. Sino titingin, no? Kasi magiging konti lang. Parang kaya ko naman. So, tumulong na rin ako. I volunteered to see patients, no, na critically ill patient. Excited ako nun. Sobrang excited. Hindi ako masyadong natatakot. Pero nakakatakot din na mahawa. Kailangan ko i-memorize yung donning and doffing. Yun yung role ko nung time na nung first surge ng COVID.
Thank you, Rodney. So ngayon, natatawagin naman natin ang ating second guest, si Sheera Brown.
Hi, Ding Dong. Hi, batchmates. Shout out sa inyo lahat. It's been 25 years almost and medyo nag-diversify na yung mga mga buhay-buhay. So to understand kung anong buhay ko, especially during the pandemic, I have to explain na I'm here in Batangas City practicing primarily from med ako, so frontliner talaga. But I have special roles sa hospital kasi I'm part of the admin team. So at the start pa lang, medyo complicated na kasi ang dami kong roles talaga. I wear many hats in the hospital. So I hold QA and compliance. I do trainings for the nurses. I co-chair the infection control. Tapos I also represent the hospital in most of the aspects internally at saka externally. So nung magsimula itong COVID na to, marami akong kausap. I had to be there with the LGUs, with interhospitals, And then we had to form the COVID team for the hospital. So andun ako para mag-encourage ng mga tao na syempre takot na takot, hindi madali at dahil hindi natin alam lahat ito. So ang dami kong trabaho pero I started na mataas yung energy level kasi there's no question that I have to be there. Alam naman ng mga kababayan ko and of course ang mga staff ko na hindi naman ako umuurong sa laban. Pero I was also anxious, I was stressed, I was sleepless. Ang hirap kasi malayo pa yung asawa ko, kakaalis lang. And I have to think about my family also. So maraming sama-samang feelings and because I was playing so much role during that sa simula pa lang and then until now naman ganon. So that's my scenario, Ding Dong.
Okay, thank you Sheera for sharing that, no. So kung si Rodney nag-share ng kanyang excitement, ikaw naman nag-share ng halo-halong feelings kasi nga marami ka ring roles na wini-wear, no. You were donning a lot of hats. Now, kung napansin po ninyo, classmates, no, kinuha po natin yung mga representatives natin from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. So Sheera is representing Luzon. Now we'd like to call our class president, Dr. Alvin Roxas, who is from Cebu City, and is representing Cebu. At iba rin po yung kanyang practice, no, because while Sheera is an administrator, and Rodney was a frontliner, si Alvin is also a frontliner, but this time he's a surgeon. So let's hear it from Alvin this time.
Hi, Ding Dong. Thank you very much. And thank you to the batch for inviting me to be part of this. And then special hi to all the batch 96. I cannot believe na 25 years na dati. Nagka-aral lang tayo sa JMC at nagpapa-overnight sa McDonald's. Ngayon, it's already been 25 years. Anyways, well, that's correct, no? Rodney and Sheera had different tact. Kami kasi, like on my part, nauna kasi talaga ang Luzon nung nag-hit ang pandemic. So kami in the Visayas, we were just watching cautiously kung ano talaga ang mangyayari. Nagkukwentuhan yung mga kabatchmates natin na ganito nangyayari, nagko-close down na, nagla-lockdown kami. Relax pa rin. We were saying na baka hindi naman ganun kagrabe rito. Because I'm not, I will be ashamed to call myself a really frontliner, no? Kasi there's really a forward frontliner, yung mga like sina Sheera and all. True. Kami kasi we were more of in my case tinanggal talaga yung transplant eh. So because I'm a transplant surgeon, so na-stop talaga yung buong transplant. So my main task then was to do dialysis access. During the initial salvo na tinamaan ng Cebu, unfortunately it was a lot of dialysis patients na tinamaan. And unfortunately also, medyo, syempre, kabado ka. Sa totoo lang, I had a collection of all the PPEs that I can get my hands on. I buy this, I buy that, suot ng ganito, kasi parang security blanket. So every time na, syempre, pag nag-opera ka, hindi mo alam kung anong mangyayari. Unlike before, siguro, nung when we were younger, pag sinabing may calamity sa ganito, sugod ka agad. Ngayon, siyempre, may anak ka ng uuwian, you have a family to go home to, we don't know if we're carrying the virus. So, siyempre, hindi mo pa rin masabi kung it's going to be safe to do that. So, siyempre, may kaba. On the initial salvo also, we were trying to give advices to the LGUs. Unfortunately lang talaga, medyo magkaiba at magkasalungat yung nangyari sa mga LGUs in Cebu. Kanya-kanyang prioritization, kanya-kanyang agenda. So nagkagulo-gulo. In fact, I think Cebu had the distinction of one of the fastest rising COVID cases during the initial part of the pandemic, to a point na natawag pa kami na matitigas ang ulo. Although matigas naman talaga ang ulo ng Cebuano. But so that was initially the yun ang nangyari. We were attending still to patients. In fact, up until now, I think maybe 60% of the patients I see in the OR are still COVID positive patients or COVID suspects. But by and large, nung medyo kumalma na, syempre natutunan mo na paano i-protect yung sarili. We moved forward into, kasi nga, hindi naman ako frontline talaga na frontline, nakikita ko yung mga pasyente. But when we saw na maraming doktor, maraming residents, maraming nurses na nagkakasakit, doon na kami pumasok. That was where we did that small project of ours to equip our frontliners. So ganun lang. Hanggang ngayon, I refuse to say na matapang na ako kasi hanggang ngayon kinakabahan pa rin talaga ako. I would rather speak in class or speak in a forum like this than enter the OR. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa nawawala yung kaba. So I think that's how things are doing now. Although, medyo mas maganda na ngayon, medyo kalma-kalma na ng konti. Hospitals are medyo mas maluwang. And of course, we already know how to protect ourselves. So hopefully, I can live to our 50th year anniversary.
Ano naman?
Okay, maraming salamat Alvin for sharing. No, alam ko marami ka rin talagang ginawang effort sa Cebu because at one time I remember you posted in Facebook you were raising money to buy PPEs, no, for the healthcare workers in Vicente Soto. So now let's call naman one of our batchmates who hails from Zamboanga. He's a pediatrician. So Jeff, what were you feeling during the start of the pandemic, and what was your role in Zamboanga at that time?
Hi, Ding Dong. Good evening, Shabakano. So I'm practicing as a neonatologist dito sa Zamboanga City, and yung role ko as a pediatrician and neonatologist practically didn't change, from the pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, very similar yung mga ginagawa ko because it's really hospital-based. So wala akong special role in terms of controlling COVID in the community. I was thinking medyo it's a luxury on my part that I'm actually just teaching and directing residents in the government hospital, and then in my private practice I'm working in the neonatal intensive care unit. When the lockdown started, I was actually in Manila, and so I need to go back like 2 days before the lockdown in Manila, and I need to go into a 2-week quarantine. Sobrang saya ko nun because that's like the first 2 weeks in the past 15 years na nagkaroon ako ng bakasyon na wala akong ginagawa. So those are the things na nagagawa ko yung mga gusto kong gawin, kinakain kong gusto kong kainin, and then like 2-3 days before the lockdown, my quarantine ended, one of my very good friends actually got admitted, and then the next day he had difficulty of breathing, tapos intubated, namatay siya. And that's the time when I realized na nandito na pala siya. Andito na yung virus sa Zamboanga. And akala ko 2 weeks would be enough for the whole thing just to die down and everything would be okay after that. Pero after that, I realized na we're in it for the long haul, for a long time. And that's when the fear started to set in, nagkakaroon ng anxiety, and then try to figure out how you're going to go around it. And the first thing that came to mind was actually trying to get hold of the proper protective equipment. Parang si Alvin, no? Pero ang problema namin dito, wala kaming flights, walang cargo. Nothing is coming in for the next 2 months since the lockdown started. And luckily, there were people who helped us. So ganun din ako parang si Alvin, kung may nag-offer na somebody who's selling mask, N95, PPEs, ino-order ko lahat. So meron pa rin akong delivery hanggang next year. So, kasi ganun kapraning ng time na yun. Because I think that was the only way I would be able to calm myself down in terms of yung anxiety and the fear that I have.
Thank you, Jeff. No, so at this point, I'd just like to acknowledge those who are watching who are not from our batch, so from other batches. I'm sure marami rin pong mga supporters dito si Dr. Bong, no? Because he mentioned that he's going to share this to his batchmates. And of course, our UERM alumni page is also being watched by other alumni from different batches. So maybe I'd like to call in again Dr. Bong. No? So how do you assess the different reactions that our friends have been experiencing during the pandemic? Kasi I think it's really a personal reaction, no? Kasi iba-iba yung roles natin in the society, and then it also depends din, of course, how you face adversity, how you react to it. Pero meron bang common denominator among all their feelings?
Right. So yes, there's the biggest underlying common denominator is the fact that syempre everything was coming to the fore as a physician. Okay, so everyone wanted to act right away. For example, nabanggit nga ni Rodney at saka ni Sheera, no. For example, like Rodney said, nakakatakot pero it's a job, no, that you had to do. And then Sheera mentioned that there was no question that you had to do it. So that came to the fore. Siguro we could compare it to parang adrenaline rush, you know. And that I think yung aspeto ng doctors as being as a leader, you know, was a good example. An interesting aspect that was mentioned by Alvin kasi nga like he was in Cebu, pero he took the initiative, you know, like what you mentioned, Ding Dong, that to raise money to be able to buy PPEs. And for a lot of us, there was a sense of loss of control, lalo na yung height of the lockdown. So this was a good strategy to be able to affirm our self-worth, and be able to diminish yung feelings of hopelessness and helplessness that was very prevalent at the time. One of the sabihin natin from a very tragic perspective, because si Jeff, he had a friend who passed away because of COVID, and that actually can be very traumatic because it is someone that someone that was somewhat close to you, and then sabi nga niya, finally it was a sign that COVID was in their area. Ito yung concern natin, binanggit ko earlier about possible late sequelae, so in a way, we look at the experience of the COVID pandemic can be something that could also be traumatic. And this could be a source of that. So, and this would be something that we would watch out for. Okay. So, yung manifestation na about anxiety and depression, very typical, okay, and understandable. But at the same time, yung pagiging doktor nila, lumabas din naman.
So thank you, Dr. Bong, and I'm also very proud of everyone, kasi talagang hindi sila nag-shirk ng kanilang responsibility. So everyone knew that as healthcare workers, we had to be at the front, you had to react. Otherwise kasi yung iba matatakot. I've heard of other healthcare workers from other sectors of the society, hindi natin batchmate, na parang nag-resign or sinabihan ng parents nila na wag na muna mag-report ng work kasi natatakot. That is also, I think, a valid feeling, Pero at least kita natin na you know really what you have to face, and kahit nga may mga ganong mga feelings sa ating mga batchmates, classmates, they still face their fears head on. Pero kung yung unang diniscuss kasi natin yung anong naramdaman nila, but that was at the start, papaano ngayon? Kasi parang 8 or 9 months already na yung pandemic. So ano ba yung nangyari over time? Nagbago ba yung feeling mo? Or meron ka bang parang bagong nangyari that really changed your attitude or how you saw things differently? And kasi usually yung emotion naman, it's like a spectrum of feelings, no? Pwede kang magpunta into one side to another side o pwedeng bumalik sa another feeling. So, nagbago ba ito, Rodney? Or yung feeling mo ng excitement, hanggang ngayon ba excited ka pa rin?
Well, in the interim, from the start, sobrang excited ako. Inaalam ko lahat paano i-treat yung COVID, paano yung donning, piniperfect ko yung donning, doffing, kailangan hindi maano yan. Lahat yan. Tapos, I'm also a training officer of the cardiology fellowship, no? So, syempre, kailangan ko rin sila hindi pabayaan. There was one time I had to cover for them, no? In a night kasi lahat sila na quarantine, no? So and then we asked other consultants to pitch in also for them. Naging cooperative naman yung mga consultants namin to pitch in para mag-duty for the fellows. So para exciting din siya, yung gagawa ka ng schedule, tuturuan mo pa rin yung mga fellows. I'm an officer also of the Philippine Heart Association. May mga activities pa rin kami. We have to move on, go on with the daily life. Yan, lahat yung sinasama, pati PCP, lahat, no? So, maraming pang, aside from taking care also of your family, no? So, dapat parang lagi mo sinasabihan, huwag lalabas, marami. Excited. Lahat ginagawa ko. May meetings, may yung webinar din, nakakaano din siya, di ba? Parang tuloy-tuloy pa rin siya. Hindi na kasi physically pupunta doon, kundi lagi nakatingin sa computer. And then eventually, 2 months ago, parang nawala, parang bigla ako napapadown. I don't know paano yung feeling na gano'n. Yung, there was a time, 2 days akong hindi pumasok. No? 2 days ako, I just curled up sa bed. Parang walang ganang pumasok. Parang natakot ako before, pero ito parang wala ako natakot. Meron mga triggers, and di ko alam kung ano yung mga pumasok na mga triggers, pero parang sama-sama siya lahat. And then curling up sa bed, that's not me. Parang ganun yung yung naisip ko sa sarili ko. That's why I had to call my friend. Shout out to my friend Joy, Dr. Joy, Papa Malin. Doon tinawagan ko na talaga siya. Na I need help. So I don't know what's happening to me. Bakit I'm curling up sa bed? Bakit parang wala na akong gana? Wala na talaga. Parang hindi man ako magpapakamatay, pero parang lang ako na from very excited, parang biglang nag-down. How can that be? Hindi man yan ang personality ko. Yan yung aking naramdaman. So at least siguro may good insight din ako that nalaman ko, hindi ko alam kay Dr. Bong, ganun ba yun? Na parang, pwede bang mangyari pala yun? No? Hindi ako ganun eh. From childhood, ko lagi active. Kilala ko ni Sheera kasi sa college magkasama na kami. Very active ako na tao. Tapos biglang naging ganun. Yun yung isang point na parang, pero hindi ako takot na. Hindi rin ako natakot. That's why parang hindi ko alam, magiging complacent ba ako na hindi ako makapag-donning, mag-doffing kasi wala na. Kung wala na akong takot na pumasok sa mga sige, tuloy. Which is nakakatakot din, I mean, hindi na ako anxious to go inside the CC sa mga critically ill patients. Nawala siya. Hindi ko alam ba't nagkaganon. Pero syempre parang, di ba? Alam niyo na, baka mamaya magkamali ako. Yun.
So, ikaw, Sheera, nagkaroon ka ba ng mga bipolar na atake kagaya nung kay Rodney?
Ay, hindi ako bipolar.
Natin si Joy. Si Joy magsasabi niyan.
Maintindihan natin ang diagnosis from Dr. Bong mamaya. I can relate.
Walang diagnosing dito,
No, talaga. We all stood our grounds, ganyan. Pero 'di ba, dumadating talaga sa pagkakataon na overwhelm ka. So ako sometime in June, dahil medyo nagma-mount talaga yung concerns like PPEs, logistics sa hospital, mga tao namin, nagre-resign yung iba, ayaw nang pumasok yung iba, yung mga ganon. Ikaw naman, since nasa admin ka, bukod sa tinitingnan mo yung pasyente mo, sinasabi mo sa kanila, kaya natin to, kailangan, you have to understand na we're also doing this for us, ganyan. Pero talaga, I had a breakdown. Talagang, ano yan, I remember this na, because we're utilizing so many medias, diba? So, in one of those medias, medyo nagkaroon ako ng snappy exchange dun sa isa or dalawang nurses namin. And then I told myself, I don't want to do this anymore. Kasi parang lahat sila dependent kung anong sasabihin ko. Lahat ng problema parang sasabihin nila, doktora, paano ganito, ganyan. Parang sa akin naman, hindi naman akin lahat dapat yun, di ba? We all have to contribute. And then, alam mo talaga, all of a sudden, sabi ko, ayoko na. I did write my own a non-negotiable resignation which I submitted sa resigning all my positions at saka So sabi ko, wala akong kakausapin and tapos na ako. I will just continue to see my patients, pero administratively parang ayoko na kasi I cannot answer for everyone, ganyan. Pero kahit papaano nakatulong sa akin kasi they let me be. Alam nila, nagka-crying sprees ako. Yung asawa ko, yun yung pinaka-ko talaga. Wala ka dito, pero you have to understand. So, he was supporting me na sabi niya, sige, you can resign your position. Sige lang para because he's trying to understand me on his end. Tapos yung anak ko, sige, kaya mo yan, mami. Ikaw pa, mga ganyan. And I have friends na, pero a lot of them, ang hirap naman, di ba, kung ikaw lang, parang madali nyo sabihin kasi wala kayo sa position ko. Pero it helped din. So, ngayon, medyo recovered na. My position, nabawasan ng konti because I really have to, para bang decompress. Kasi ang hirap talaga. So, ganun. Dumadating talaga pala sa point na, napupuno ka din.
Which is, Sheera, parang hindi mo rin maisip na mangyayari sa'yo. Sa akin, hindi ko siya maisip actually. Kasi, kilala naman ako ni Dingdong, ni Sheera, na mga close friends, yung mga yan. Hindi, parang tanggap ka lang ng tanggap ng trabaho, di ba? Go!
Parang ganyan, you spread yourself thin, parang ganyan.
Yeah, actually, mga ganyan.
Hindi feeling hero ka, pero alam mo yun, may sense of fulfillment ka to do something. Kasi
that's it.
In the position ka na may gawin ka, di ba?
Yes, human nature. Somehow you want to be relevant din sa society tsaka sa amongst your group, di ba? So, tanggap ng trabaho.
So, thank you, Sheera, for sharing, no. Pero nabanggit mo kasi, Sheera, na isang aspect nung pagbabago ng mga naramdaman mo, meron ka ring support system na sinasabi yung husband mo. Although hindi man kayo magkasama at that time, pero natatawagan mo siya. And of course, you also have your daughter with you. Now, let's ask naman Alvin, because I know Alvin is a family man, and then Elaine, who is also our classmate, is also a doctor like Kim, no? So, ano naman yung nangyari sa iyo, Alvin, during those 9 years? Merong 9 years? 9 months? Nagkaroon naman
tagal ng COVID, di pa tapos.
Huwag naman sana.
Nangyari yun?
Huwag naman 9 years.
Ba yung mo? Nagkaroon ka ng parang roller coaster of emotion? Or naging, Sheera nag-breakdown, si Rodney nagka-bipolar. So,
baka ma-diagnose yung batch natin na may mga tililing, ha? Anyways, first, I would like to give a shout out and an appreciation to Elaine, my wife, who's also our batch. My pillar yun, eh. Of course, she's no longer practicing, but she's at home, she's with the kids. Pero, to be honest, I would want to say na sa panlabas na anyo, I'm trying to show a very strong face, trying to make it appear that I'm not affected. Pero sa totoo lang, yung kaba mo, on so many aspects, from safety to even your finances, everything, hindi siya ganun kadali. Especially ako, although I am already based in Cebu, all my classmates who are doctors are from Manila. So pag may question ako or something, I still call our batchmates or friends na doctors in Manila kasi sila talaga yung mas kilala ko kaysa sa mga doktor in Cebu. Pero ako, kakaiba. When I started, kasi nga, nasa bahay lang ako, hindi ako masyado nag-o-opera, wala naman akong clinic. Nagsara talaga ang clinic eh. And I am not with the administration anymore, so I don't do admin work. So naging Facebook warrior ako. So yun ang aking pinagkatuwaan. Social media criticisms, suggestions, things like those. Yun ang initial kong ginawa. During that time, doon ko nakita yung problem ng safety. Kasi, syempre, from time to time, papasok ka sa ospital, papakita ka. And then, yung mga kaibigan nating nurses, kaibigan nating residents will call, umiiyak, magkukwento. Alam mo, nagbe-breakdown. Nagkukwento, na kesyo, na COVID nga siya, ngayon naka-isolate siya. Tapos sasabihin sa'yo, Doc, sana malampasan ko to, pero medyo hirap na akong huminga. So we have residents na na-intubate or meron kang mga residente na alam mo, nag-a-assist lang sa'yo tapos biglang kita mo na tatawag, pag kinausap mo, sasabihin sa'yo, Doc, ang hirap palang huminga pag nagko-COVID, ang sikit. So that was the time that it dawned on me na if I cannot be a frontliner yung talagang susuong ako sa gera, maybe I can help protect these people. So sabi ko, ano ba yung kailangan? So when we started, sabi ko, sige, hanap tayo ng PPE. We imported PPEs from China. Kasi nung time yun talaga, may pumapasok ng COVID ward. Yung N95 recycled na matagal nang ginamit. May PPE, yung mga tinahilang, hindi yung talagang fully protected. So when these nurses cry and these residents cry and sabihin sa'yo, hirap sila, parang nakakadurog ng puso, no, if you don't help. So sabi ko, eventually I said, baka mask. So mask naman, hanap na naman kami ng mask. Imagine the mask were 1,500, 1,200 pesos each box. Like 40 pesos, 30 pesos lang yata yun. So imagine, ganun ka grabe yung supply and demand. And then eventually, we decided, sabi ko, swerte naman, meron pa rin tayong mga konting kaibigan who gave out some assistance. Kaya nabuo namin yung Protect the Frontliner project na ginawa ko. And that's the same batch of PAPRs that kumuha si Jeff, nagpabili si Jeff sa amin, nagpabili yung iba. And we gave out quite a number. We started with 30 PAPRs, naging 60, naging a little over 100. And they were not cheap, pero ngayon pag nakikita mo, like whenever I go to the hospital, sa hospital kasi namin sa entrance may swabbing area na malaki na drive-thru. So pag nakita mo, parang sila lang dito sa amin ng naka-full naka-respirator na powered. Talagang well protected, and it makes you very happy when they tell you na, Doc, salamat ha, pakisabi dun sa mga tumulong na we are stronger now, kumbaga parang ang dating is mas matapang kaming pumasok ng COVID ward. In fact, meron nga akong kwento dyan. Yung una kong binigyan ng PAPR is a resident who got COVID. So, ang nakakatuwa is after niyang gumaling sa COVID, first back niya ng hospital, papasok na siya ulit ng COVID ward. Parang sinasabi niya, it was just a temporary setback and we have to move forward and do it again. So, nung naisip ko yun, parang sabi ko, we need to protect these people. And we would have wanted government to protect them. Gusto namin sana yung city or yung province magbigay ng pera for that. But of course, we know that they cannot. So, kaya yun, naghanap na lang kami ng paraan paano siya maging, how it will be safer. And that's why we were able to raise a little over 100 powered respirators. And ngayon, if you ask me, how am I? How are we? Ako, to be honest with you, I'm still afraid. I do not want na mawala yung fear. I do not want na mawala yung emotion ko na nawo-worry ako. Because I seem to think that if fear escapes me already, baka that is the time that it's going to be dangerous on my part. So ako, sabi ko nga, if you remember nung nag-first meeting tayo sa Zoom, I was in the OR, di ba? So what I do is, I sit down, I go to the OR, no, change and everything, mag-opera ako. Paglabas ko, I will sit down in my car for about 15 to 30 minutes and I will review every step of the way. I will trace back my steps. Kung meron ba akong nakalimutan, meron ba akong pagkamali, meron ba akong ano. Because I'm thinking na pag uwi ko, nandyan yung sina Elaine, yung pamilya ko. Tapos pagdating ko sa bahay, kukwentahin ko na naman, may mali ba, may ganito ba. And then, medyo madasalin naman ako eh. Pero I think this is one time that I've really prayed so hard. Almost every time. Every time I do an OR, lalo, kasi matindi sa amin, confirmed COVID eh. Sasabihin sa'yo, Doc, RT-PCR positive yan, very symptomatic, intubated. So alam mo talagang potentially pwede kang mahawa kung hindi ka mag-iingat. So whenever we do that, talagang lahat na talaga ng santo tinatawag ko para just to make sure that I don't get it. Sabi ko nga sa'yo, yung alcohol, yung lahat na lang ng pwedeng isabit sa ultimo yata yung bawang na isasabit sa malapit ko nang gawin eh. Para lang just to be sure, to be safe and all. And I really hope that this ends because this is not how we should live life. Eh. I don't believe that this is how life was designed for us. Buti nga meron ng Zoom eh. Parang we can communicate. I can still communicate with my patients. Imagine how can I treat a post-transplant patient or post-AVF na lang. Paano ko titingnan yung sugat niya? Nung una talaga, pinapakita yung sugat sa camera. Parang sabi ko, how will I treat a patient that way? It cannot be that way. So, or, mag-opera ka na 3 ang gloves mo. You know how difficult it is to feel the pulse of a patient with 3 gloves? Minsan, tapos na ako mag-opera, ginaganon ko. Parang hindi umaandar. Tapos talaga mapipilitan ako, tatanggalin ko yung gloves ko, umaandar naman pala. So, things like those. It's not really very easy, but I think we need a good support from friends, family. In my case, my wife, my kids. If wala sila doon, siguro kung ako lang ngayon, dalawa lang naman pwedeng mangyari. Nandun ako sa COVID, talagang haharapin ko yon. Or baka nagka-COVID na rin ako because I might be negligent and all. So I really hope and pray it ends. Unfortunately, we're seeing again some little spikes of cases. Cebu napababa na talaga namin. But now, meron na namang small spikes. I hope it does not go into a full-blown spike. But at least if it goes into a spike now, I think we're better equipped. Saka mas alam natin kung paano siya haharapin, paano. Yun nga, sabi nga ni Rodney, paano mag-donning, mag-doffing. Na-memorize ko na nga yun eh. Whenever I sleep, yun lang iniisip ko, paano ko tatanggalin. Ini-imagine ko, natanggal ko ba ng tama yung gloves ko, hindi ba tinamaan ng laway yung ganito ko. Minsan na, sobrang praning na lang.
Nakakapraning na nga lang din. Pero tama ka, Alvin, dapat hindi matanggal yung takot. That's why yung sinasabi ko yung nakakatakot na hindi na ako natatakot baka kasi maging Pero syempre, natatakot din ako pagka limbawa na may parang akala mo nagkamali ka tapos may mapraning ka, konting kati lang ng lalamunan mo, konting ubo mo lang, kala mo yun na.
Nung first salvo nga nagko-consultation. Di ba naka-PPE ka, nakatakip kang lahat. Siyempre, sumisigaw ka. Every time ako matapos mag-consult, pag uwi ko, ang sakit na lalamunan ko. Sabi ko nga sa'yo, yung betadine, talagang tira ng tira, tapos kinakabahan ka, baka may COVID na ako. Kaya eventually, I had to buy a microphone para magkarinigan. It's not easy.
Maybe this time we'll ask naman si Jeff, kasi I know si Jeff is not really from Zamboanga. And you mentioned a while ago, Jeff, na nung first part of the pandemic, you were actually at home, no? So, paano ngayon nung nasa Zamboanga ka na, did you have any support mechanism?
Actually, yung family ko, nandito na yung parents ko sa Zamboanga. I was in Manila for a visit. Actually, I was on a dental visit. Pagdating ko sa Asian, sarado na lahat ng clinic. Tapos ko, gagawin ko dito. So, buti na lang the next day, naka-uwi ako. So, yun. Actually, so yung, parang masaya pa yung atmosphere sa airport going back home. Mga kasama ko, mga boxes of alcohol yung dala-dala nila. Ako, wala. Ano lang. Hand carry lang. So, it didn't really dawn on me that it would happen this way. Pero, yung, in terms of what happened in the past 9 months, siguro parang paulit-ulit lang na you eventually get used to the new things that are happening. Like, dati kasi we didn't have any way to diagnose COVID. So we need to send specimens to Manila. And the flights would come far in between, si mga 5 days, 6 days before magkaroon ng flight to pick up the specimen. So you don't really know what you're dealing with. Fortunately, yung mga babies dati, hindi naman sila nagpa-positive with the COVID test. So masaya na ako kahit pumasok ako ng OR, yung nanay yung positive. Ako, very, very short lang yung period of exposure. And then the babies turned out negative. Pero recently, may mga babies na nagpa-positive. So, panibagong anxiety na naman on my part. So, parang iniisip ko na naman, tama na naman ba yung ginagawa ko? Uulitin ko na naman lahat. May bago ba akong gagawin? And I think that's the worst part of the past 9 months. Times, kala mo na-expose ka. Tapos, that night, meron na ba akong COVID? And for the next like 5 to 10 days, lahat ng symptoms mo, sumakit lang yung likod mo, sabi nga nila Rodney, sabi ni Alvin, inubo ka ng umaga or meron kang sipon, kala mo may COVID ka na. And I've been through a lot of RT-PCRs, siguro naka 5 na ako or 6 na RT-PCR tests. So, all of them turned out to be negative. Sabi ko, sa sobrang dami kong exposure, negative pa rin ako. And I think that's a good sign. Although I've got friends na I work closely with na nag-positive. And I think that was one time when yung friend ko who came out of COVID, tapos sabi niya sa akin, Jeff, hindi ako ready mamatay during the time when I was confined. Dapat maghanda ka na. So maghanda ka na ng cheque. So anytime you die, somebody can get your money from the bank. And nagkamali ako. I think I wrote it in the our batch group chat. Nasulat ko yun.
Parang malaki yun yung cheque.
Nasulat ko na. You need to prepare. It was supposed to be for another group chat. Tapos bigla na lang sabi ni Joy Malinit, Jeff, are you okay?
Pinamimigay na ni Jeff yung pera niya.
Pero tama yun, ha? Actually, parang nung start nga, nag-plot na ako ng last will and testament. Parang di ba handwritten lang naman siya? Dapat lahat ng word, ng mga may sulat na ibigay mo na doon sa ano.
Okay, I think important nga siya, pero hindi pa rin nagagawa, pero hindi importante siya. Pero, sabi nga. Pero si Joy, thank you. Nakatulog ako na nagte-text siya, sabi niya, Jeff, are you okay?
Check lang because we are already 59 minutes, no? So, di ba, ang goal natin 1 hour, pero we can extend naman kasi we're having a good discussion. Siguro we'll ask Dr. Bong at this point because we know that mental health is really no joke, no? And siguro tinatawanan ko lang si Rodney kanina, but actually I can do that because, we're among friends. Pero alam naman natin ano talaga yung effect, no? Kasi lagi na natin nakikita yung mga sakit na pneumonia, yung mga diabetes, hypertension, but actually yung mental health masyado talaga siya naging important during this period of the pandemic. So maybe Dr. Bong, can you help us siguro kung how do we explain the situation among doctors? Is it different from other people and also from yourself? Kasi may mga nakikita kang doctors na naging patients mo. Tapos siguro sa psychiatrist, sasabihin mo kasi kung may problema sa family, you know, it will pass or whatever. Pero ito, parang anong assurance na ibibigay nung you know, yung advice, yung counseling, when actually parang lahat tayo, we don't know when COVID will end.
From a psychiatrist's perspective, since you mentioned about mental health, one of the personal opinion to, although this is shared by other psychiatrists as well, is that isang malaking kakulangan in terms of the approach towards COVID is that mental health wasn't considered at the very start. No, we need to remember that when we talk about health, overall health, that mental health is part of that. And so therefore, when there was planning that was being developed about managing COVID, the considerations about mental health should be there at the outset. Unfortunately, at times, mental health is not given that priority. So now we see that it's actually an important issue. Okay, but and the webinars like this are very important in emphasizing that. Kaya nga really, I'm very happy that you thought about this, because hopefully that this will make people realize more about the importance of this issue, and that and how critical it is to be able to consider that. I'd like to take off also from something that Sheera mentioned earlier. Sinabi niya na hindi natin alam kung anong gagawin dito, which is true. Remember, the last pandemic was more than 100 years ago. So that for dealing with COVID, really no one was very prepared for this. And so therefore, it was very critical that on a day-to-day basis, we learn to adapt. So banggit nga din ni Jeff yung about getting used to. So you need to get around all the challenges and look for ways by which you can adapt to this. Kaya nga may phrase na tayo, the new normal. But heaven forbid that's not going to something that's going to persist. But again, yung tatakra mo nandiyan yung moving forward, yung actually yung with Rodney, meron siyang mga from a psychiatrist perspective, ang term namin counterphobic actions, yung bang kahit alam mong nakakatakot yung sitwasyon, pero you don't think about the fear, you just move forward because you know that you will be there, because you need to be able to help, you need to be able to do something. So everyone, most of us as doctors kasi, I think one of the biggest difficulties that a doctor faced now is because of the expectations, kasi expected ng mga tao na tayo yung gagawa, tayo yung tutulong, tayo yung maghahanap ng paraan. So kahit yung hindi natin nga alam kung anong gagawin, nakatingin pa rin sila sa atin, di ba? Kasabi nga ni Sheera, tanong sila ng tanong sa akin, Kaya it was inevitable that you're going, at a certain point, we're going to snap. Kasi nga, and then we're trying to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. But, we need, and that's why it's important to have family support. So nabanggit nga ni Alvin yun, nabanggit ni Sheera, malaking bagay yun as far as each one of us dealing with all these things. Kasi otherwise, makakaligtaan natin yun, and then we might go home not being able to vent. Kaya actually yung binanggit ni Sheera, yung word na ginamit niya, decompress, so technically correct yun. But of course, what we would use is the word to be able to ventilate. So each one of us would really benefit from having a loved one, a friend who would be able to listen to us. Maswerte nga kayo, meron kayong Dr. Joy, Papa Malinit. Siguro siya yung psychiatrist na ng batch 96. So that's... Kasi nabanggit tayo, so sa UERM, so may mga tatawag sa akin, pasimple din, na uy, Bong, kasi ganito, yung gano'n. Sabi ko, yeah, that's fine. Kasi each one of us naman, makakatulong yung assurance. It's going to be like yung 4 simple letters, are you okay? I mean, text that to someone, and malaking bagay na yun. Kaya nga, if Joy does that to each one of you, malaking bagay yun, kasi to be able to have someone concerned for our mental well-being, and then for someone who will be willing to listen to us. Remember, we have a process kasi we call psychological first aid, no, and we apply that to people who undergo traumatic events, ano. With psychological first aid, one simple step lang is reflective listening. So we just need someone to listen to us. They don't even have to provide something constructive or specific na, oh, ganito gawin mo, step 1, step 2, step. No, they just need to listen to us, no. And a lot of people become kahit yung mga non-psychiatrists, ano, they feel insecure na ayokong kausapin si Sheera, ayokong kausapin si Rodney kasi hindi ko alam kung ano sasabihin ko sa kanila. Hindi yun ang point, no? The point is not for you to be able to come up with something specific to tell them. The point is for you to be able to listen to them. Kasi each one of us, no? Kaya nga like si Alvin, mabuti meron siyang wife na yung pag-uwi niya who will be able to listen to them, no? So yung gano'n, no? Yung maganda situation yun. Isa din magandang binanggit ni Alvin yung prayer, no? And it's something that's often overlooked. Of course, it might not work for everyone kasi prayer and other mindfulness behaviors will be very helpful. I often recommend to people na at the end of the day, no, you lie down, quiet room, and reflect about how the day went, no? And then, you know, and look in terms of how you acted, and then whether you need to be able to do something differently, you know. But yung mindfulness na ganon, you know, is just savoring the moment, finding the pleasure in that, and then being able to reflect back on what has happened, and then being able to move forward for that, yung ganon, ano. Most of us, said, as doctors, no, we would deal with the situation like this from an intellectual perspective, na yung intellectual coping, to the point, sabi nga ni Alvin, di ba, yung focus siya on a day-to-day. Kaya nga pag pinakinggan mo si Alvin, parang ang dami niyang ginawa, no? Considering naka-lockdown, ang dami niyang na-accomplish, no? So yung intellectual coping, pero at a certain point, yun na nga, bigla sabi niya, for a couple of days, he didn't want to get out of... kasi minsan nakakaligtaan natin, may mga emotional reactions din tayo. So hindi lang yan cognitive. We need to consider also about yung emotional state natin. And that's the reason why mindfulness can be very helpful. What I often tell people is, no, you take your right palm and then put it on your left chest, and then just feel your heartbeat, just feel your breath, and then at the end of the day, you close your eyes and then just relax, and then just do that, just be within yourself, and then consider that, and then just think, that we are not supermen, we are not superwomen, that we will not be able to respond to everything. And it's all right, no? It's fine to say at a certain point, no, I'm sorry, I really don't know what we can do at this point. Maybe we could take a step back and consider all the variables, and then, and then think about it. So, like yung Sheera, mahirap yung sitwasyon niya. Doktor siya, and at the same time, may admin role, and at the same time, family person, no? So, very complex, no? So, what you could do, katulad yung ginawa niya, tama yun. You can take a step back and say, I cannot do this at this point, no? So, let me just focus on this. And then, for everyone else in a similar situation as hers, no? That could be helpful. It would also be helpful if you have bosses who would be willing to listen and say, okay, I take your point, and if you feel that that's something that we could work on, then fine, okay. So yung mga ganun, kasi at sabi ko nga, one of the difficulties that we had as doctors during this time is that yung loss of self-control, loss of control, not just self-control, but loss of control over what was happening, So what we do generally is try to compensate for that, and then just doing everything from our perspective as doctors, and then putting so much expectations on ourselves na kailangan kasi gawin ko to, kasi kung hindi ko gagawin to, baka walang ibang gumawa. Okay, kaya maganda nga yung point na binanggit ni Alvin na yung protect the frontliners by diverting, kasi we need to divert our energies as well, so diverting it to something that was constructed, that was going to be helpful to people, was really something that was awesome, So very complex, Tapos nakakatuwa nga kasi lahat naman tayo, hindi lang naman kayo, pati ako, nagsusomatize. In fact, a study that was done as soon as the pandemic started by a psychologist from De La Salle, okay, found that yung somatization behavior, what we technically call health, ang illness, anxiety, was on the rise, no? So hindi lang sa mga doktor but also from other individuals, no? Yung bang pag kumati lang yung lalamunan mo, minsan nga, yung pag-inom ba ng alcohol, makakatulong. Pero of course, beer or wine, yung mga gano'n. Siguro makakatulong to pa, hindi ako magka-COVID, yung mga gano'n. No? So yung mga gano'n. So, and all the things are normal. Ano? So, so question that was raised, so when do you know that it's beyond normal na? Well, I look for things in terms of overall functioning. It was something that was asked of me by a medical society recently. So how would you know? So I would look in terms of our overall functioning. And yung overall functioning natin, we divide that into three. You know, personal, which is self-care, social, yung interaction natin with the loved ones, and then third will be yung work or occupational functioning. So yung self-care, yun na nga, kung namamaluktot ka na sa kama, 2 araw ka na hindi naliligo, nagtutoothbrush, okay? And then, you should worry, no? Tapos yung interaction natin with other people, have we become withdrawn? Do we not want to talk with people anymore? If our loved ones are calling us, ini-ignore ba natin sila? Yun, okay. And then pag naapektuhan na nga yung pagtatrabaho natin, no, yung mga dating ginagawa natin, hindi na natin nagagawa, okay, or yung quality ng work natin is suffering already. So we look at it in terms of all those three areas. Tapos look also in terms of the extent and severity of the manifestations. Kung pa isa-isa lang yan, occasional insomnia, then that's fine, ano. Pero kung 2 linggo ka nang halos hindi nakakatulog, 2 hours a night, no, and then hindi ka na rin kumakain ng maayos, hindi ka na rin naliligo, and then you should be worried, ano. So that means, no, then tawagan na natin si Dr. Joy. Malinit, ano. Kasi kailangan ng atin din something a bit more specific.
Rodney, pa-reserve ka na. Pa-reserve.
Meron pala yung kasama rin pala yung sa anxiety. Kung hindi, nagigising ako sa madaling araw. Oo, yung ganun yung. So, yun yung pataas ng pataas yung yung surge. Tapos nag-duty ka na sa ward. Tapos actually ang talagang Hans, talagang ang mga frontliners are residents and fellows, no? And isa lang ako doon sa mga consultants that go inside, no? So hindi ako yung talagang parang syempre sila yung mga nandoon, no? Pero pumapasok talaga ako and looking at those patients. So pagka ganun na yung yun yung time na hindi ako nagigising ako sa umaga, hindi ko alam, natatakot ba ako? Hindi kasama yun, no? Tama, may parang kasama, pero at least, I don't know, yun yung tinatanong ko kay Dr. Bong kanina, if tama ba yun? Good insight ba yung nangyari sa akin na I went on to call my friend, no? Joy.
Yeah, we have a question here, no? Actually, kasi 1 hour 12 minutes na tayo, so we need to wind down. So for our 4 panelists, I have a question for you. Pero reserve lang muna yung answer niyo because I'm going to ask Dr. Bong a question. So yung last question ko sa inyo is what were your coping mechanisms, and maybe you can share with us how they helped you. And then yung isa pa, yung very important part ito, I think, no, na hindi naman nabanggit kanina, pahapyaw ni Alvin, the financial aspect of it. Kasi syempre, no, doktor tayo lahat, nag-aral tayo nito, but this is also our source of livelihood. So nagkaroon ba tayo ng financial issues at this time, and how did you cope with it? Malay nyo, nag-change pala kayo ng career or what, no? But before that, Dr. Bong, we have here a question kasi, no, from the audience regarding the treatment of anxiety. Kung paano raw ba ito tinitreat? Do you have to give medications or psychotherapy lang? This is a question from Dr. GT. I forgot the last name. Dr. GT Pare. So, Doc Bong, how are these anxieties managed? Meds or psychotherapy or periods of relaxation? And then also another question here, kung yung consumption daw ba ng alcohol tumaas during this time?
This anxiety question first, It depends on the severity. Sabi ko nga, no, look in terms of overall function. Kasi I think Alvin was the one who mentioned it's okay to have fear. Sabi din ni Rodney yun, ano. Because fear anxiety is one that propels the organism, you know. Kasi so we call that signal anxiety. Katulad din ito, paglabas sa webinar, performance anxiety. So anxiety can actually be something that's helpful and productive to the organism. Pero yung nga, based sa binanggit ko kanina, kung naapektuhan na yung function mo, and then we would do something about that. So the worse it is, then the more forms of treatment that we would ano. Pero yung ordinary anxiety can be managed by stress management techniques, you know, yung relaxation, deep breathing exercises, no. I recommend, and I've actually devised an autogenic session that runs for about 2.5 minutes that I've uploaded to YouTube, which I share to friends and family and even my patients, you know. So like if they're at a certain point that they feel overwhelmed, no, just close your eyes and then listen to this, you know, and then yun nga, this will help focus on your breathing and your heartbeat. So may mga times na mamamanage yun by simple techniques like that. But of course, the worse it is, then the more that you would, more help that you would need. So psychotherapy will be helpful and medications as well. A lot of doctors kasi non-psychiatrists, a lot of non-psychiatric physicians are very afraid or very cautious about prescribing benzodiazepines. Kamang-talang kami na mga psychiatrists left and right. Just teasing. What I'm saying is malaking value nito, but especially when used judiciously. Okay. Tapos about the alcohol, yes, it's true. And this was something that was shared by an addiction specialist a couple of nights ago in a webinar that I attended. Sabi nga nila, it's true. In fact, sa UERM, binanggit lang mismo sa akin ng mga residents namin, yung sa Quezon City, as soon as the alcohol ban ended, sabi nila, parang ilang gabi sunod-sunod may mga alcohol intoxication na dinadala sa ER. Okay? But then, this addiction specialist, minonitor nila, nakita nila that the sales of alcohol actually have been increasing since the ban ended. And then a lot of people seem to be stockpiling. Sabi nila, just look at Lazada. No? Yung Lazada came up with the data themselves, yung sales of alcohol. And so it's true. People are... So the addiction specialists are actually very worried about this because at a certain point, this could be counterproductive, with individuals who are trying to deal with their anxiety symptoms in a negative way. So I'm not saying masama uminom, but I'm saying that if you're using it to deal with anxieties and fears, then you might not be using alcohol correctly in that way.
So what about your prescription of sedatives? I'm sure marami ring mas nagpa-prescribe sa'yo this time, right?
Actually, yes, but I use it judiciously. Tapos since most of my patients kasi are elderly, so they really don't need that much. But it's true, no. In fact, again, with the addiction specialists, may mga patients na sila who are going doctor shopping. Okay, who will go from one doctor, then they'll go to another doctor, then they'll go to another from a different hospital just to be able to get the prescriptions for benzodiazepines. And that's why it's great. Like major drugstores like Mercury Drugstore are able to monitor that if they have patients with the same name bearing different prescriptions from different doctors. Monitor nila, so they are actually able to call the prescribing physician.
So sige, yung last question na, no? Let's go to our last topic na. And by the way, if you have questions, pwede naman po tayong magtanong sa Facebook Live or sa YouTube Live. Just comment there. And thank you, Neri, our classmate, for sending all those questions here in the Zoom chat box. So maybe this time, let's start with Sheera. If there were any financial issues, and what were the coping mechanisms that worked for you during this time?
Well, ako, coping, of course, I talk with my family and yung mga doctors in the same position, nakakatulong din yan kasi they share their experiences. Pag narinig mo sila, parang, okay, normal lang ako, parang ganun. And yung mga webinars actually nakatulong sa akin, especially mga wellness webinars, and even yung mga self-help, mga teaching webinars, yung natuto akong gumawa ng crepe, nag-start ako mag-paint, mga ganon, kasi I have to find ways para ma-channel ko tong from dinadala ko. And ako kasi sanay akong one form of venting is yung nagsusulat talaga ako. So nagda-diary pa rin ako, parang ganon. So nakatulong talaga sa akin. Financially, I don't know kasi hindi naman ako kagaya ng interventional cardiologist, ng transplant surgeon, or ng
Ganon.
Interventional cardiologist daw.
Pero the patients hindi naman sila masyado dumami in terms na yung mga dati ng patients hindi naman sila, they don't come to the hospital, pero whoever comes medyo toxic talaga, so medyo mahirap. So financially so limited. It's a good thing that I have some compensation from the hospital. Pero yung sa akin parang hindi na yun ang inisip ko rin eh. Especially the first part, I was spending my money buying food and PPE, just like Alvin and for my staff, for everyone to share, parang ganon. So hindi siya important. Of course, important to have buying powers, pero at this point in time, malayo sa ko na I have to save or ganyan. So it's more of I have to live today, parang ganon. Ang ko dun sa money ko. So I don't worry because if we all believe God is a good provider. So as of now, I'm being provided. So I'm thankful for that.
What about you, interventional cardiologist?
Hindi, coping mechanism. Sabi sa akin, ni-remind ako ni Joy na gawin mo yung gusto mong gawin. So ano ba yung pinaka gusto kong gawin? Kumanta. So I put up a YouTube channel, no? Click and subscribe. So
yung YouTube channel mo, nakita ko kanina.
So doon na nag-start ako to sing. Enjoy naman, parang masarap siya. Tapos I cook din and socialize, no? Pero syempre, still with caution, no? With social distancing. Talagang lumalabas ako with friends na ngayon. Pero ganun pa rin, hindi naka-mask pa rin, naka-face shield pa rin, pupunta sa mga... Pero pag pupunta akong restaurant, kailangan open air siya, no? Al fresco dapat, hindi siya close. So yun, continuous socialization kasi human beings are social beings eh. So parang hindi siya kailangan lagi may kausap, no? So, financial-wise, hindi ko masyado iniisip yan eh. So, wala. Hindi ganun. I mean, kasi, parang, pagka iniisip ko, lalo ako nasi-stress dyan. So, para sa akin, basta tuloy-tuloy lang. Basta if you're serving, the blessings are coming also. No? Hindi siya nawawala. No? If you're serving people, tuloy-tuloy lang siya. So, yun.
What about Alvin, our transplant surgeon?
8 months of no operation, stress out.
May Ross group of companies naman.
No, quite honestly, Elaine used to tell me before na, for a good, medyo, maipon, mag-ingat, mag-save, we have to have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds. So, talagang we try to do that na if whatever happens, kung wala ka talagang income, zero and all, you can still survive for 6 months para makahanap ka pa ng paraan. And little did I know na 6 months would not be enough because it's already been 8 months and I still haven't done any major procedure unlike the interventional cardiologist. No? So, totoo yun.
Wala rin kayo masyadong umpisa.
Nakamute ka eh. Anyway, so it's difficult. Mahirap talaga yung income. But again, as you said, I still believe that money naman is a secondary motivation for us. When we became doctors, nasabi naman natin that by default, the money will come, but the service will always be of paramount importance.
Yes. Yes.
Pero yun talaga, kumbaga, gumagawa kami ng procedures for COVID. Nagdadala ko ng sarili kong PPE. Pagkatapos tatawag yung nurse, tatawag yung business office na, Doc, pipirma ng promissory note. alam mo yon, alam mo namang hindi makakabayad eh. So, talagang ganun, wala ka magagawa. But at least you know na, kung may nangyari man doon, at least you know that nakatulong ka. Now, in terms of coping mechanism, ako, again, yung alcohol, natawa ako eh. Tsaka si Elaine was beside me, natawa ako nung kinukwento nyo. Kasi si Elaine does not drink, if you remember before. Hindi umiinom si Elaine. Pero nung nag-COVID, natuto. Ako naman, nakakatawa. Nag-enroll ako sa European bartending online class. So gumagawa ako ng mga mojito, gumagawa ako ng mga kung ano-ano, as in pag ganun-ganon. So that's one, no? Tapos Elaine umiinom na rin nung time na yon. So and I started, if you notice, 'di ba, yung likod ko noon was all mga scotch. So napainom na rin ako nung kasi nga yun ng outlet. And then of course, I started doing what I have wanted to do for the last 5, maybe 10 years, which is my bonsai. So hati kami ni Elaine. Elaine is doing the vegetable. So we eat salad now that comes from the garden. We eat vegetables coming fresh from our garden. And then I have my bonsai outlet, which is
Naman, may hacienda.
meron din akong YouTube channel. Bonsai Doc. No, but what's funny is during the entire lockdown, natuwa ako sa anak ko kasi 'di ba, nung nasa bahay sila, nagi-games. Yung isa kong anak nagi-games, started a YouTube channel. Mas malaki pa kinita kaysa sa akin on a monthly basis. Kasi ang daming followers. 100,000 subscribers, so naka-cash out. Nung kinukwenta namin mas malaki pa income niya sa akin during the entire time. So, yun, and then I have my plans. And ngayon, kasi I ride a motorcycle. Pagka medyo gusto mong mag-unwind, stress out, bunta sa bundok, pahangin sandali, kain lang ng breakfast, and then go back home, at least recharge. Pero, again, as I always said, yung strength ko talaga is really my family. So, at the end of the day, pagtapos ng I just want to go back home and, be at home. Watch TV, makipagkulitan kay Elaine. Minsan, inisin yung asawa ko.
O baka pwede naman makita natin si Elaine. Is she there beside you?
You call her para nahihiyang magpakita sa camera.
Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Elaine.
Yeah, but it's nice to know na for the last 8 months, siguro it's a restart, para bang pahinga muna kasi nung time na yun talagang lahat gusto mong gawin, lahat gusto mong ma-accomplish and all. Ito biglang all of a sudden parang switch off, pause, take a rest, breather, malay mo hard restart, and nakapag-isip-isip ka what are more valuable things in life, not just practice, not just money, not just material things. Sometimes just the time to be alive is already a blessing, if you ask me. Kasi nga, hindi mo alam. Ngayon, palagi kong sinasabi, reunion. Iniisip ko na lang, next year kayang reunion, makakasali pa ako, or sa 50th reunion, makakasali pa ba ako? I don't know, no? Kasi pag nakikita mo, may mga namamatay, may mga But in the end, it's God's naman's decision if we are going to die or not. For as long as we did our best while we are alive, we help as many people as we can when we were alive. Happy na ako nun. Marami na tayong deposito sa langit. Mamaya na natin withdrawin.
Si Cesar lagi nawawalaan, no?
Yeah, mahina yata yung signal ni Jeff. Jeff, are you there? Ayan.
Pag nag-aaral na yung mga tao ng sa clock, kaya mga kompetensya. Ay, okay na.
Yeah.
So, ikaw na, Jeff, it's your turn to speak. If you have any coping mechanisms that you can share that work, no? Kung baka naging plantito ka na rin ba like Alvin?
Plantito na nga.
Nag-try ako mag-plantito.
Nawala ba siya ulit?
Yeah, nawala si Jeff. Okay, so
you guys should try plants.
Ha?
There's Jeff. Ayan na si Jeff.
Yeah. Hello? Ayun.
Nawawala ka, Jeff.
Oo nga. Pangit yung signal pag gantong oras. Nag-try ako magtanim, pero namatay lahat ng tinanim ko. So, okay lang. So,
Patulog ka, Alvin.
Na-stress silang lahat.
No, pwede mag-bonsai. Mangingi na lang ako. So, ayun.
Alam nyo, yung bonsai ko, nung umpisa, pinangalanan ko sila. Yung first few plants. I named them for every patient that expired. Una lang, yung mga first few months, parang, ito si ganito to. Kasi may mga pasyente akong post-transplant na namatay. Ito si ganito. Para bang I planted it in their memory. Although, ngayon nga lang, na-overtake ka na kasi iniisip ko kung yun ang magiging linya ko, baka sobrang dami ng namatay kong pasyente kasi dami ko ng tanim. Yung first few lang.
Okay, Ding Dong.
Okay, it's actually 7:30 already, no? So 1 hour and a half na tayong nagkakaroon ng discussion at parang pwede pang ituloy. Pero may gusto pa si Sheera actually. Sheera, baka we don't have enough time already for the fast talk.
Looking forward pa naman ako dun sa fast talk na yan. Ni Sheera yun. Ito ang highlight ng buhay ko ngayong araw na to eh.
Pero slow yung connection eh, so hindi pwede. So I'd like to thank everyone for the very lively discussion. I think a lot of us really learned from your experiences. Tsaka pwede rin natin gawin yung mga coping mechanisms ninyo. Pero I hope this is not the last time that we get to talk to our batch. So before we end tonight, maybe I'd like to ask each of you rather, to give your hindi naman tinatawag na last words siguro parang
naman
message for our classmates because we want to wish them well and we hope to see each other again after 25 years of graduating from med school. And then of course we'd also like to ask a message from our teacher, Dr. Bong.
Okay, ako muna. Shout out again to my batchmates, class of 96 and sa class ni Dr. Bong and all the celebrating class sa 2021. So shout out sa inyo. And ang message ko lang is that if you're feeling the same way as we have felt before, my emphasis is mental health. You cannot overemphasize it actually. You seek help kung kailangan dahil hindi tayo Superman, mga doctors din. And not only the other doctors, lahat din ang kung sino nakakaramdam ng anxiety, depression. So seek professional help. So, and then do whatever you want para maging ma-relax naman kayo. Do your hobbies. Okay.
Ako naman siguro. Ako, I second the motion na lang kay Rodney. Pero ang message ko dun sa mga batchmates, medyo ikli ang buhay. So, hopefully, dun sa chat box man lang natin at magkita-kita tayo. And hopefully by next year, if things are more positive, sana magawa pa rin natin yung yung reunion. But let's keep positive about it. And see you kahit doon man lang sa Viber groups natin. Okay?
When we started this, when I was invited, ang sabi nyo, ang topic was, Dokie, are you okay? Okay. Sabi ko initially when I answered that is, I don't think I'm gonna be okay. But after today, I think my line would be very simple. I am going to be okay. We have to be okay.
Yes.
Not just us, kahit yung mga pasyente natin, yung mga this is just COVID. We are Filipinos, we are humans. Since time immemorial naman, meron ng virus. But they have never won against us. One way or another, we will win against them. So we have to be okay. But I think more importantly, we need each other's support. Kami nga ni Jeff, malayo sa batch, Hindi namin matawagan ng basta-basta or mapuntahan, makita. Shout out kay Joy. Sana nandito ka. kinulit ka na sana namin. But again, as I've said, in the end, I think I will always say we have to be okay, and we need to pray. We need to seek divine guidance and divine intervention, because in the end, tayo namang lahat gusto natin mabuhay, gusto natin safe, gusto natin hindi tayo magkasakit, gusto natin may pera tayo, gusto natin may pasyente tayo. We will just continue praying. We will just continue supporting each other. We pray that this will end. And I hope and pray na when this ends, I am still standing up. Kasi sayang naman yung pinlano ko na suit, na penguin suit na susutin ko sana sa reunion natin. Tapos kanina, sabi ko nga kay Elaine, nilabas ko yung, we have a batch picture. Sabi ko, ito yung batch picture. Ang plano ko, ipapa-frame ko. Tapos during the reunion, ilalabas ko. You know, those things will not materialize maybe this year, but we are very creative people naman. So there's always a way to have the reunion online without necessarily risking it. And as soon as everything is okay, let's meet up. Dati, pag exams, after the exams, we always meet up in my house. So why not come to Cebu when this is all over? O ayan
Sure.
Invitation yon.
Sa Hacienda, Rojas, group of company.
Tumataas pa case
Okay. O nga, no?
Yeah. But stay safe everybody, yung batch natin and everyone else from UERM. I think everyone is doing a very good job, and I saw that UERM is no longer flooded just like before, na pwedeng bangkain yung psych area doon sa ilalim. Stay safe everybody from both of us here in Cebu, kami ni Elaine. We are hoping and praying for everyone's safety. And please stay safe and keep in touch.
Si Jeff naman.
Okay. When I was invited dito, sabi ko kay Sheera, boring naman ang buhay ko, wala na ako ma-contribute. So, ito na yung highlight ng araw ko ngayon. So, actually, in terms of our batch, 4 kasi kami dito, so medyo, you know, nandito si Lani, si Agnes, si Clint, so okay naman kami dito. So I'd like to say hi to everybody, the other members of our batch, and thank you for inviting me here. Feeling ko hindi ko nasabihan sila Lani na manood kasi hindi kami masyado nakikita. Pero hopefully nandito sila watching this, and I'll tell them
Jeff,
yes.
Lights on, lights off.
Ay, talaga meron? Di ba si Sheera lang, hindi ako? Lights off na.
Fast talk.
Si Sheera lang yan
Sheera, set your chocolate.
Ayaw sumagot?
Sheera, sex or chocolates?
Ano? Hindi ko narinig.
Sex or chocolates?
Sex!
Okay, so our takeaway message from Dr. Bong.
Yes. I'd like to end with a message that I think it was Alvin mentioned earlier. It's considering also that yesterday was National Thanksgiving Day in the US. So let's look at it from that perspective. Sabi nga niya, so let's leave this in a positive note. Sabi niya nga, when we wake up, let's always feel that we should have a sense of gratitude. That despite all these challenges that we might be facing, at the end of the day, that we look for something that we can be very thankful for. Okay, and therefore I'd like to end this with saying that all of you are remarkable individuals, that on behalf of all the audience, I'm sure everyone shares the same sentiment, that thank you very much for bravely sharing and contributing to the liveliness of this discussion, and I feel very honored and privileged to be with you this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Bong.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bong.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
So I guess it's time, no, to end our webinar for tonight. But this is not the first and last webinar we're having. We're going to have more, and we need your participation, classmates. Now, if there are topics that you want to discuss, then we can just schedule them. And we'd like to invite also the other alumni if they would like to sponsor other webinars, so that everyone will feel na even if we are all suffering during this pandemic, we are not alone. So we have our family, we have our friends, and we have our co-alumni at UERM who are always there to help us. And for our batch, do not forget Dr. Joy Papa Malinit. Kung may problema po kayo, you can talk to Joy.
And Dr. Bong Buenaventura.
And Dr. Bong Buenaventura. Para naman hindi ma-overwhelm si Joy.
Okay. May magsa-shoutout mo na. Hi daw. Hi, hi.
Hello.
Hi, Lynn.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We'll stop our live feed now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.